Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Greg Shove with us today. He is CEO at Section and founder at Machine and Partners. He drops new essays every week on personalmat.substack.com if you want to follow him. A Torontonian, I forgot how to call Toronters maybe, former Toronter, and now in Menlo Park, California. I'm from Montreal, so always good to speak to fellow Canadian. And this podcast is presented by my company, podpar.com. If you want to start your own AI podcast and get authority, bunch of leads, and even clients from those, you can go to podpar.com. We have a free ebook and a masterclass awaiting you. Greg, tell us a bit more about yourself. I see so many founder and CEO positions here, and tell us about what you're up to nowadays.
Sure. Well, I mean, the Charles, first of all, good to meet you and see you again, and good to chat today. Listen, I've had a pretty typical Silicon Valley career, but no one wants to talk about those, right? Everyone always talks about the huge failures or the huge successes, which are the exceptions to the rule, not the rule. The rule is a career more like mine, which is a lot of ups and downs, over over 30 years, I guess. Here I've been in Silicon Valley, some strikeouts, some wins. No unicorns. Maybe only in Silicon Valley can you sell your companies for a combined $250 million and feel like, you haven't made it. If you're not impressed, I understand. My kids aren't impressed either. They're like, where's the unicorn? Where's the $1 billion exit? So I haven't had one of those. I've had what I consider more typical career, which is a lot of hard work and, just a lot of grinding it out, trying to make companies work and pivoting companies and, finding product market fit. And finding customers that'll pay and pay every year, right? For a few years, which is what I had to do with Section. Section started as an online business school, more focused on sort of management training and executive leadership. And I pivoted the business almost 2 years ago to the day, February the 1st, 2023. I was not happy with our growth. I was not happy with our differentiation and our moat. There really wasn't one in online education. And the first time I played with ChatGPT Plus, I'm like, okay, this is the new accelerant for careers. If management training, and it is an accelerant for careers, this is the new accelerant. The people that could, figure out AI sooner, faster, and kind of use it to their advantage, they'd be in the AI class, and the AI class would have an advantage. Eventually, all of us presumably will know how to use AI, but it's going to take a few years, right? And so I decided to pivot Section, and we're venture backed, so we've got great investors, but they expect a good return, right? And a big outcome. So the pivot made sense to me. And for the last 2 years, we've been teaching AI and now really helping companies deploy AI inside their organizations, which is the real opportunity. Consumers are the way that AI has got off the ground, meaning OpenAI and Anthropic, these companies, their early momentum and their early revenue, and it's real revenue, right? It's billions of dollars for OpenAI this year, has been on the backs of consumers and small business. But ultimately, big business are going to have to pay for this. If the math ever works, right? If the business model ever pays out for all these investors investing, the hundreds of billions of dollars in AI, it's going to be because enterprise pays for AI and deploys AI internally. So that's become Section's primary customer. We sell to consumers, but consumers can get AI education anywhere, free on YouTube. So we really have focused on companies that need to train anywhere from 1,000 people, maybe to 100,000 people on AI. So that's the last pivot for Section. We need to build a $100 million business. Riding this AI wave.
Right. Very cool intro and stuff you're up to nowadays. I want to start off by, accumulated 250 million. I think that's way higher than the average in Silicon Valley per founder. Sure. If you do the maths, probably 20 million accumulated per founder. That's a reality, and a bunch of people come to the Valley and leave because it's too expensive. They cannot stand the burn rate, right? And I think still 90% ish. I think it follows the global average of startups fail in the Valley. So it's pretty impressive what you've built. Want to start with that. And the question I had while listening to you is do we need to have a unicorn, right? And also the follow-up question to that is, how will that unicorn be created in the AI age? Will it be with 200, 2,000 employees, or will it run on 5 execs and a team of 2,000 AI agents?
Yeah, well, first of all, the first part of your question, don't do what I did. Don't start venture-backed companies, or start companies and don't agree and decide to take venture capital unless you really know you need it, unless you need it in the time frame that VCs want. Because VCs want answers fast, right? They want to provide capital, sometimes a lot of capital, and they quickly want an answer. Are you going to make it or not? Are you going to be the next unicorn? No, of course we should not be chasing unicorns. That's the unlikely outcome. The more likely outcome is either failure, as you said, like a zero, a bust, or build a nice small business. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with $1 million a year in revenue and netting a couple $100,000 a year? What's wrong with $5 million in revenue and netting $1 million? That's how you become a millionaire. That's how and then do that for 10 years. That's how you become wealthy. I mean, that's a huge amount of wealth. I think the challenge in Silicon Valley right now, the problem in Silicon Valley is we have entrepreneurs playing the game, and the rules of the game are now decided by investors, right? The game of entrepreneurship is now sort of been wired for this idea of chasing a unicorn, raising a lot of money, going fast, spending that money as quickly as possible, getting to an answer, finding and only being interested in big product market fits. What about small product market fits, right? So I think this is a huge disservice to entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs, because $1 million or $2 million, that's life-changing for an entrepreneur, a first-time entrepreneur, right? That can change the quality of your life. So why not?
For sure.
Right?
And you had that plenty of times. I guess I still want the $1 billion because it's really hard. Anything hard is sort of worth it in my book once you did the full process and have thought about it and have A/B tested lots of things, in my opinion. But then what will $1 billion be worth in like 10 years, right? So I guess I'll need to find a new goal, maybe $1 trillion. But the question is, once you've accomplished that very hard thing, aren't you taking way more than you're giving back in the system? You mentioned enterprise sales, and today I've written an essay about corporations taking way too much as their fair share. They're sort of keeping the competition away on one side and producing normal products, right? If you think of Nestle or Coca-Cola, it's like pretty average products, right? Like low innovation. So what do you think about, first, the $1 billion goal thing that I mentioned, and second, taking more than you give as a big enterprise?
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't think you should be looking to be a trillionaire. I know Elon Musk is, and that's why he's decided to use the U.S. government as a way for him to find the way to become the first trillionaire. Again, I just think for your listeners, for all of us, find a problem we care about, build a product or service that solves that problem, and we have to care enough about it to be able to grind through it. So much of entrepreneurship is just facing challenges and trying to kind of work through them. So find a problem you care about, build a product or service that you're proud of, and obviously then find a business model, find an economic model that works. And again, what works probably means you can build a $10 million business. I don't think people realize how hard that is.
It's very hard.
It's really hard, especially when you're starting with new ideas, new products, things that don't exist today. Yeah, you want to open a burger restaurant, you want to get a franchise. Sure, okay, that's going to be probably an easier path, and not a bad idea, by the way. Why not that? But if you're going to start from scratch and build something that doesn't exist today, even getting to $1 million in revenue or $10 million in revenue is super hard. Be happy with that and deliver great value for the price that you charge, and that way don't take more than you get, right? And hopefully, or maybe you can scale it up, maybe you can't. But at the same time, you'll build some financial security for yourself and your family. Let's start there. I think we're seeing right now the cost to our democracy, into our societal norms, right, and potentially our freedoms, of when a very few number of very powerful and wealthy people don't have enough, and their greed is such that they want to keep pushing and taking in order to get to some sort of status, financial or influence or power, it's not going to be healthy for them, and it's certainly not going to be healthy for us. One of my biggest concerns about AI is it is a massive wealth generator, but it will be in the hands of just a few companies and people and CEOs. And so I think we all want a version of AI of the future where its ownership is more distributed and the wealth creation is more distributed. Unfortunately, at this moment, these models are so expensive to build that only a few companies can attempt to do this because they require so much capital. And I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the fact we'll have very powerful AIs that we all rely on every day, that we cognitively offload to these AIs, but they're only owned by 2 or 3 companies. I don't think that's going to be healthy for our democracy or our economy.
Interesting. We'll double click on that. Yeah, that Elon thing that you mentioned, and I think that's the Canadian in you, because I had a podcast with my dad. We were beachside a couple of days ago, and he said pretty much the same. And I think, yes, at some points, like unhealthy paranoia, like you have your financial security, but you want more, But the question is, isn't that evolution in the end? Evolution is like never wanting to stop. It's something deep down inside us. That's a question I had. And then, yes, of course, I want to double click on what you just said. OpenAI, so far, they've done a good job, I think, at democratizing AI. The pro plan, of course, is $200 a month, and I think it's phenomenal for what it offers. And there's a bunch of companies, a bunch of competitors, but it seems that we have some large inventory of choice in front of us. We can even go open source with Hugging Face, for example. Do you agree with that? I'm not seeing how AIs could be available, or maybe AGI could be available only to a few, but right now it seems pretty fair level. Do you agree?
Yeah, what I'm saying is I think AI is going to get put into all of our hands. So I agree with you. AI is very affordable and very accessible, and likely to become more so. The cost of AI, the cost of inference, as you know, has dropped 90% in the last 12 months and will likely keep dropping. Eventually, the prices will go back up. We know the Silicon Valley playbook, right? Amazon ran that same playbook. Uber ran that same playbook, and a bunch of other companies, right? Lower the price, get us addicted, and then raise the prices later. So eventually, the prices will go up. But my guess is most AI will stay very accessible and affordable. My concern is it's just a few companies. I don't think most open source AI is going to get very far. So the reality is it's not just about the model, the technology, the AI. It's about the brand, and it's about who's got distribution. It's about who's got enterprise adoption and consumer adoption. It looks like it's going to be a small number of companies. So my concern is that eventually they will have a lot of influence and control how we work and even how we think. I think we really need to understand what's going on here. These companies, including OpenAI, are not trying to save or fix humanity. They're not trying to fix healthcare or climate change or education. They're not. They're just trying to get really rich and be very influential. That's what's going on here, right? So we're like lab rats. We're like lab rats in a giant human experiment. The experiment is, can humanity thrive? Can we thrive living with our AI? Can we live with this co-intelligence, work with this co-intelligence, and thrive? I hope the answer is yes. I'm optimistic. I get a huge benefit from AI every day. So listen, I'm optimistic. But let's be clear what's going on here. It's Silicon Valley, greed and progress. Sure, there's a quest for progress, but there's also a good amount of greed. These investors need to get paid back, Charles. They're not putting in all this money to save humanity. They're putting this money in because they think the most valuable companies in the world are going to be built, in this moment, meaning over the next few years. And that's probably the case. I just hope it's more than 1 or 2 companies. I think we need a very robust ecosystem of AI so we have choice. Frankly, I don't want XAI to win. Based on the behavior of Elon Musk, I don't think that's the Canadian. That's not the Canadian in me. That's that's someone who believes in democracy. That's not a Canadian feature.
But didn't democracy elect Trump?
Yeah, well,
You
yeah,
know,
but not Elon Musk. And
uh,
and by the way, if you're gonna buy access to a president, I hope it costs more than $300 million. I mean, that's what makes me most upset.
yes,
If you're gonna buy access to the federal government so you can do whatever the hell you want, really, only $300 million? That's like a parking ticket to Elon Musk.
yes.
Come on.
I agree with that. And that experiment itself, is it like more dangerous than the AI one, like the current US government? It's pretty dangerous in my own barometer. I agree with the last part that investors, old investors, and the gerontocracy is definitely a dangerous thing. You know, they want their return at whatever cost. But if you look at Sam Altman, I think he's a good guy. I think he has good intentions. He's not perfect, of course, but I think he has noble intentions. I think he's already set financially, and also I know that Bill Gates doesn't have much influence anymore on Microsoft, but it definitely stems from this. And I think a lot of people look at these folks as snakes, but I think they have good intentions. And if there would be someone to make AGI happen, I would want it to be Sam Altman. What do you think, or do you not trust the guy?
Yeah, I think I think we're both judging too soon. Like I think that he's sincere in his efforts to build AGI, and more than sincere, like deeply committed, and has already withstood all kinds of threat, and business threat, and managed through a lot of complexity, both technical and organizational structure wise. I mean, everything. The guy, very, very, very impressive, but we don't know his intentions, and I think it's too early to judge.
Right.
And the reality is the money talks. And so, I don't, that doesn't make investors evil. It just makes them rational. I mean, they don't provide capital with no return, right? That's not a business model that works. And so, and AI needs a lot of capital because it needs a lot of compute, and Stanford PhDs. So listen, I think it's early. We have no oversight, though. Let's be clear. What's happened
Yes.
in the last 60 days is basically big tech gets to decide what they want to do, and I just don't think that's necessary. We know how that'll work out. There'll be some good things that happen, and there'll be a bunch of unintended consequences, and there'll be bills to be paid down the road, and I'm not sure who's going to pay them. And my guess is it won't be big tech.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's usually the consumers and
yeah,
taxpayers and the
that's
lower
right.
stratas.
That's
So you don't trust the market itself, that the free for all model to yield to push humanity in the right direction? Like you're more on the quote unquote socialist side, if you want, the Canadian side of things. Do you think that governments
not
will
the case.
stay over
That's not the
time?
case. That's not the case. I'm not suggesting that that we need to regulate AI such that it'll either slow or die even. And I think Europe is overregulated, and we're going to see what happens, which is that they likely, what leadership position they had, what small leadership position they had, probably will evaporate, will disappear. So I'm not suggesting that. And characterizing a socialist, I think, is a mischaracterization. How about a little bit of oversight? How about some guidelines? How about trying to get together and agree on what do we do when? Should we even have why not have a conversation about job loss at least? I'm not suggesting regulate it away. I'm not suggesting that. The market will figure this out, right? This is we are a Darwinian economic system here. I get it, but let's at least let's be honest about it and have a conversation about it at least, so we can think about what we might want to do when that starts to happen, if it starts to happen.
Right, because one positive thing of the Trump Elon thing going is that they're bringing the startup philosophy to government, which could also be a bad thing. But I think I have more faith in that than bureaucratic governments to actually oversee that. And bringing business into governments could, to some extent, have a positive effect, because I just don't trust the governments to regulate anything. I think they've done a poor job at pretty much anything they regulated over the past couple of years. We've seen that the SEC has been acting as cowboys and trying to shut down Coinbase, for example, for no good reasons. Do you think that privatizing the government and bringing more the startup essence to governments, do you think that this will actually have a positive effect on the AI landscape and regulation?
Well, first of all, if you take a view of government regulation with a 2-year time horizon, I just think that's kind of naive and not so not enough time, right? Like most regulation takes longer to figure out and then longer to deploy and even longer to assess if it worked or not. So this idea that government regulations evil or not a good thing. Well, our planes fly and land successfully most of the time, right? Our drugs don't kill us most of the time, and so on. Regulation works, right? Guardrails work. Can our government be run more efficiently? Yes. If we brought more of a business mindset, more of an ROI mindset to government, would that be a good thing? Yeah, of course it would be. But to think that's going to work overnight, and to think that some of this sort of the theater that we see, of Doge is really going to be effective and change in the time frame that you're suggesting, I think that's naive. And I think running around laying off 10,000 people here and 15,000 people here, that's not the work. That's not the hard work really needed, whether it be a government agency or frankly a large organization. It's just theater. It's just a distraction. So yeah, listen, I'd rather see a more serious effort at government reform than what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, good part of it can be theater, but Elon is a master at getting shit done. The guy fell in my ratings in the last couple of years too. I think like any serious founders, I'm still curious to see like the effectiveness of it. But you mentioned planes landing and drugs being approved. I think like systems, unbiased systems, using blockchain, using AI could do that. And if the consumer would be connected to the outcomes of the products that they use through an app or through something, I do think that this would work even better, right? Because what over-regulation does, which is the model in most countries, it slows down innovation drastically, right? And a cancer-saving drug is getting slowed down by a decade now, and we're just not seeing any progress. You know the rules of momentum as a multiple startup founder, so I'm seeing this as an interesting experiment. It's definitely I'm more on the entertainment side of things, right? Like grab your popcorn and watch, but it is different, at least, than what we've seen in the last decades of government in countries. Now with AIs, yes.
Charles, I hear you. But listen, by the way, if they were well-managed experiments, lots of them,
yeah,
I'm all for that. If someone said, and listen, Elon, we can't question his ability to build things and build and break along the way. Sure, but let's bring it to government and say let's run some disciplined experiments. That's what good entrepreneurs do. That's what he's done in his companies. So rather than get on stage with a chainsaw, take that time and go actually design one of these experiments and run it for a few months, even a year or two, and prove that the change will work. I mean, the bureaucracy, is diminished and the innovation is accelerated. Sure, that's a hypothesis. Prove it out. Prove it out in 10 different experiments, rather than run around and do a bunch of PR stunts. That's what we need right now. And by the way, I don't think it's grab some popcorn and sit back and watch when people are losing their jobs, losing their livelihoods, and not being able to make their mortgage payments overnight. I don't think that's fun to watch. And I don't think that
certainly not that part.
This is not entertainment. This is people's lives.
But what can one do as a founder to change this?
Change what?
Change the whole situation other than watching it from a distance. I was just using a hyperbole, but most founders, they watch and comment from the stands, right? I think that's the playbook if they want to pronounce themselves on politics, because everyone's tired of discussing that. It tends to bring anger in people. Most people don't know how to have a debate,
Sure.
And I grow brain cells. So like, what can a founder do to change this and to bring what they want out there?
It's a great question. It's a great question. Build the product or service that you want and build it in a way that you want. So I would suggest that how founders should spend most of their time is focused on their products and services that they're building, their team, and running their companies in the way that is sustainable, healthy, and to model that behavior for others. And by the way, most entrepreneurs can't run a company like Elon runs a company, because most entrepreneurs aren't Elon. So, run a different playbook, one that works for you, one that is sustainable, and one that if your employees take your playbook and go start their own company using your playbook, right, using your management style, using your operating principles, then they're going to have their own success. So my advice to entrepreneurs is, model the behavior and build a company that you want to work in yourself, with great operating principles, a great product, and a sustainable business model. Keep it simple.
I like that. Playing the devil's advocate is never easy, but yeah, at least I stood my grounds. By the way, I'm fully agreeing with everything that you mentioned. I think it's a shit show nowadays, and yeah, people need to talk about it. Where can people find out more about you, Greg?
GregShove.com, GregShove.com. Everything I do is there. I'd be great if people reached out. And if your audience reaches out, I'll make sure they get a free pass to any one of our AI classes. If they want to kind of accelerate their AI learning, we'll help them out.
Thank you.